What's up, everybody? Clone here. Here with the Wicked power rankings, I guess, or draft analysis. Um, we're gonna go with the Metro's team first, of course. Um, I don't think I'm gonna do a mid-season one because I'm doing both of them now, but maybe I'll do one at mid-season just to look at like records and stuff and predictions. But with Metro's draft, so I pretty much made this whole draft for Metro. I think the only mon he drafted was Serp, which was nearly a choke. But I mean, I guess it's kind of biased, but I do think it's a very powerful draft. It's very I'll say it's the synergy is very clear. It's a lot like Luke's team. But I think it's a little bit better just because the synergy between like the lower picks is a little bit more solid. Now he wasn't able to get Mega Medi, which was the original plan, but I think Mega Bro is just as good in this type of build. Because Slow Bro was taken, I think, by Yoshi, so it's just pretty solid. The speed tiers are of course good. He has all the types. I mean, when you build with 8 mons, or when you create 8 mon drafts for like so long, it kind of seeps into your 11 mon drafts, so that's why he has like Saval and Heracross as his last 2, I guess, and Cryogonal. It's like they're mons that really don't do too much, but I mean, all the other mons on his team are just so efficient. The only thing that he would maybe want is a better electric immunity, but realistically you have Savali, which can be grass or ground. I know grass is an immunity, but so I mean I think it's a pretty solid draft. Obviously it has all hazards, and Pult is one of the best mons in the game, so pretty good draft. Anything else? But yeah, it's kind of an example of a draft where you can see synergy. It's not just that the mons are good and they happen to be good together. It's like they all help each other, you know. Where you kind of want to build your teams to where you have a very consistent core that you're bringing, and then decent support mons to help you in certain matchups. But you never want to really bring all your members equally. You want to build around one mon as best as you can, which these are all like pretty standard, like Bro, Rotom, Heat specifically, Mandy, either Nido, even Serp are all very standard with Pult. But yeah, very good draft, of course. But yeah, so I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure how Metro will do with this draft because it isn't what he's comfortable with, and but it is very strong. So I'm not sure if the reason why he's been winning is because he's only comfortable with, like, you know, the Mega Pinsir Keldeo drafts, or because of his good play. So I think this will be a good season where if he wins this season, I mean, the proof is in the team. If he doesn't make playoffs, then the proof is in the player, I think. So there's that. The last time I built a team in DPL, it won a championship. So hopefully Metro can do the same this season. Next up is Dank. He won 2 seasons ago, I believe. Let me see. So Urshifu, that is single strike, right? The dark fighting one. Okay. I like Clef and Urshifu. Crest is interesting. Gliscor, Empoleon, Heliolisk. Interesting. So I said this in the last video, but I prefer Go-Go only with Coco, realistically. Just 'cause I feel like the other grasses are significantly better than Go-Go. And he's not really weak to grass in particular here on this build. I guess he doesn't have a fire type. Yeah. Oh, I guess Zard is. Yeah, he's not weak to grass at all. He has a Zard. I will say maybe his hazard removal isn't the greatest, because realistically it's just Gliscor and Empoleon here. Gliscor and Empoleon, and you don't have spin for your T-Spikes or Spikes. He does not have a grounded poison either, right? Yeah. So he's missing a couple things, although he is missing like certain important things in a draft, but I do like his core, Clef, Urshifu, and Megazard, and even like Gliscor with that I like as well. His speed tiers are okay as well. It's kind of like those, like, see, I think this is a good example where if you look at realistically between Metro and Dank's speed tiers, Dank's fastest mon is the Selgor, right? Now Selgor is an okay mon, right? But if you compare it to Metro's, it's Polt, and Polt is even faster than Selgor. And then you look at his second fastest mon is I believe Heliolisk, and then if you look at Metro's, it's Serp, I think. Yeah. So there's an important thing is to get speed tiers, but I think the difference between SM and Sword and Shield in particular is you need to prioritize speed tiers now. It's not just getting your E picks to have decent speed. It's prioritizing with your A's, your B's, or your C's, or even your Mega, really fast speed tiers. And so that's something that I think is important in Sword and Shield, just because there's so much speed creeping, or there's so many fast threats now, like especially with addition of Polt and so many other things like Zero Aura from last gen, and it's just getting faster and faster, the Pokemon. Mega Arrow is like really good. I don't even know if anyone drafted Mega Arrow, surprisingly. it's a really good mon, but you just kind of need speed. Granted, he has okay Scarfer and Urshifu, and Heliolisk is a good Scarfer, but like it's not bad speed tiers, but it's not good either, you know. But I do like the core within Clef, Urshifu, and Zard. Clef I think is very underrated, especially in Sword and Shield. It's one of those mons that can realistically win you every week. It can come every week and it can win you every week. It's one of the most consistent mons in A for sure. Like Mew, I would say Mew is a mon that can win you every week, but it's very inconsistent at doing that. Whereas Clef, it can consistently pull off the same 2 to 3 sets and fulfill the role very efficiently, even though the opponent knows it's coming, of course. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid draft. I wish he had a grounded poison, because especially with Urshifu, I think like you kind of want that poison to pressure fairies, which I mean Empoleon as your steel is not offensive steel either, so he might have trouble breaking fairies. Now Megazard is okay at breaking fairies, just because it's pretty bulky itself. But I just think maybe Spiritomb, Reggie, and Go-Goat are a little bit weird on this build. And the thing is, I don't mind having 1 to 2 defoggers, and he has good defoggers. Gliscor and Empoleon are defoggers, but you kind of, if you're gonna draft a mon like Zard, you kind of need spin. Especially because spin is really good now. Before, I think spin was pretty ass, but the speed boost is really nice for so many Pokemon, like, you know, Starmie, stuff like that. Donphan even, stuff like that. But yeah, I think I would have liked to see another ground maybe as well. Like, I don't think the Regirock really offers you too much. I would have liked to see like an E ground instead maybe. But I think it's a pretty solid team. I believe in the core. It's kind of like the important thing is just to have a really strong core. Your role players are gonna be role players, you know. So what if they're not the best at that? But I think like you trade Go-Go for Roselia, and this draft is pretty okay. Spiritomb is obviously not because Roselia gives you stuff to actually spin block with Spiritomb. Otherwise, I don't really know what Spiritomb really does. Just because you have good pressure to kill bulky psychics with Urshifu, so you don't really need the Spiritomb, I think. You don't really need the pursuit, that is. But overall, I think it's okay. I'll say Heliolisk is maybe a little bit weird without Sun, but I mean it's a good mon. But enough with that. It also got the throat spray item, which is cool with Hyper Voice. On to the next one though, Sep's draft. So Infernape, Fireman, Jirachi, Lando, I, Dragalge, Klefki, Gergeist, Sneasel, Vikavolt, and Pheasant. And Pheasant is a little bit weird in this build. Dansey. The speed's okay. It's kind of like Dank's, where, I mean, Dank's speed tiers are better, but Sneasel as your fastest is probably not ideal. But overall, it's okay. Like, aside from the very fastest mon being Sneasel. And Sneasel's an okay Scarfer. Infernape's one of the best Scarfers in the game, and so is Rachi. I will say I'm not a fan of Lando I. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Lando I. I feel like this team And Gorgeist, I feel like there is better grasses than Gorgeist, especially low tier. There's definitely better grasses than Gorgeist. I know you can run a lot of the different forms, but realistically, they're not. Any of them are not any of them are like that ideal. And if you think about it, like you're drafting with Rachi and Infernape, you need a really good ground resist, and Rachi and Gorygeist are both not good against knockoff, particularly. So stuff like Tangrowth with EQ and knock be able to hit both and put in a lot of work against this team. So you're gonna rely on your Infernape a lot to pressure grounds, but I feel like in general this team might have trouble breaking in like a Hippowdon. I know Hippowdon's probably undrafted. Oh no, wait, Sappy has it. But yeah, I feel like his best mons or his core, they share similar weaknesses, and then they don't actually help each other break those weaknesses in particular. So that could be a problem. So I'm not a firm believer necessarily in this core of like Infernape, Brachi, Lando, and Diancie. And then I think the role players like Gourgeist is not really ideal. The rest are okay though. I'm a big fan of like Stoice, Dragalge, Klefki. I think you would have preferred to have a water with recover though. I'd much rather see like a Jellicent on this build and then get a better grass. But it's not a bad draft, I'd say. I think the synergy between his like main core, it could be a little bit underwhelming, I think, or it could have trouble breaking certain things, especially without Zayu moves. So on to Yoshi's team. Kyurem, Lando, Nihilego. Props to Nihilego pickers. Slowbro, Mienshao, Mo, Licky, Talonflame, Bolton, Steelix, Megamaw. The Bolton is a little bit weird. I assume it's because it gives you speed tier. Cause I don't really know what it does otherwise. Cause you have great pressure for water, so you don't really need Bolton, I think. And even for flying, so you don't really need Bolton for that either. Thinking. Like going back to Steps' team, I was thinking about his hazard removal. Steps' team, his hazard removal was probably not ideal either, but he has the Diancie, so it's okay. But his team, like this is the type of team where his team's not really weak to hazard, so being a little bit underwhelming as far as hazard removal goes, it's not the worst. But back to Yoshi's team. Because you have Talonflame, but Talonflame, there's no reason not to run boots nowadays. The Mega Mawa I'm a fan of, but I feel like I like Kyurem Lando with Mega Maw. It makes sense to me. I also like Nihilego, just because you're able to put a lot of pressure on steel types with Mega Maw, Kyurem, and Lando, so Nihilego does have potential to break in the late game. This type of build where you wouldn't expect Nihilego to be the kill leader with Kyurem, Lando, T, and Mega Maw, but it easily could be. Obviously Slowbro Mega Maw is very standard. Slowbro can set up Trick Room, teleport safely into Mega Maw, and it's just a good teleporter into Mega Maw. Mienshao is pretty cool for fast Volt Turn. You don't have another regen user, but I think it's fine. It's kind of like you'd probably want to run like Reckless more often. Mo, I like Mo. Mo is one of the best electrics in the game, as far as value goes. Licky, I like Licky on this build, because you have Steelix. I do like the Steelix Lando as well. Even Steelix Mega Mawile is not that bad, I think. Granted, you could have picked, a ground that's not weak to EQ, or Edgequake specifically. Because I feel like something like Excadrill would be very annoying for this team, for obvious reasons, like your Excadrill switch-in is only Lando T, and Lando T is not, Lando T is susceptible to being counter-prepped really easily with Excadrill. You have Magnet Rise, you have Air Balloon, you even have like the Smackdown set, and even your standard SD Iron Head, like if you flinch him once, that Lando is pretty much dead. So there's that. But I think it's a pretty good draft. Probably second best so far, aside from Metros. It just makes sense. I'll say the only thing I don't like is while I like QMT and Lando, I feel like you could have had something more threatening instead of, or I mean they're both really good role players, so I guess you're really trying to support Malwao, but Malwao works best when there's two threats, you know, two very prominent threats. And I don't think Lando T is in that same place it was in SM where with Z moves it could kill anything. And Kurum, you know, it's very matchup dependent. There's, you know, stuff like Scissor. There's nothing really you can do against Scissor except for HP Fire. And then, so then, you know, you'd ideally want to be choice locked. But if you make wrong reads, then Kurum isn't really going to do much for you. But I mean, it's a pretty good draft. That's it. I say I like the synergy between the core. I think between Kurum, Lando T specifically, Nihiligo, Slowbro, Mega Mall, and then the role players are pretty ideal. Manchao, Mo, Licky, and Talonflame. The only thing are maybe are your E picks. They could be better, but Celix is honestly an amazing E. So I don't think it's that bad necessarily. You're just a little bit weak to EQ, like specifically Drill, I'd say, but it's not that worst. But onto Chris's draft. So he has Mence Lele, Cinder, Scully, Urshifu, the water one, plus Vaporeon. See, I forget who had the double water with Urshifu, but this is a situation where double water is good, I think, because your Vaporeon is good at taking Scalds. So you don't want your double water to be weak to Scald, you know. But anyways, Grimmsnarl, I like Grimmsnarl a lot as a mon, especially D here. It's I don't know why it's in D tier. It's like a B. It's honestly like a B tier mon. It's probably a little underwhelming as a B tier mon, but it's a perfectly fine B tier mon. Palisand, Tangela, one of the good E's. E-grasses, that is. Mega Aggron. Interesting. It's okay. I think his fastest threats are a little bit frail. Although that's not a problem. But I think the speed tiers are okay. I think it's definitely so with the core definitely makes sense to me. Like Lele, Mence, Scolipede, and Cinderace. I can see Scolipede winning easily, like as long as Lele, Mence, and Cinder are good at breaking, like, and especially Urshifu as well. It's very offensive in terms of its ability to break through teams. I know another team had Mence, and I wasn't really a fan of it, but I think Mence on this type of build is pretty good. Just because it also gives you, like, with boots, it's a pretty good bulky mon. To take like EQ, because your EQ resist otherwise is not really existent. I mean Palisand, I guess, and Tagela, but they're not ideal mons. But yeah, like bulky Mence is pretty good on this specific team, because you kind of need it. It's kind of like, I guess the problem with all Lele drafts or most Lele drafts is you're not really. I guess here specifically, the only time I'd see Lele's Psychic Terrain being useful is with the Scolipede, preventing it from getting killed by like Fake Out, Bullet Punch, stuff like that, Mach Punch, and it's low. But I mean, I feel like it's such a niche scenario where, yeah, that does sound like a good use of it, but how many times is that really going to be useful for you, and how many times you're going to actually successfully use it, that your opponent isn't going to realize, huh, well, I can't really use Ice Shard Sneasel to revenge kill the Scolipede because he has Lele, so I'm going to bring something else, you know? So I feel like your opponent's, it's one of those things where, yes, it is useful, but it's not really going to, you know, pay off necessarily. But I feel like you're just drafting Lele here for Lele, which, I mean, is fine, I think. On this specific build, I think it's okay, but obviously the mon's worth is not being maximized. And it's kind of something you want to do with all the top boots is maximize their terrain. Because realistically here, there's even some counter synergy in the fact that Urshifu likes to run Jet a lot, especially the bandit sets like to run Jet. So there is some counter synergy, but you're just kind of drafting Lele for Lele, which I think is okay. But you know, after the terrain nerf for its damage, it's not the greatest mon in the world. And it doesn't get, you know, I mentioned this in the other video, but it doesn't get, you know, the Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Draining Cassette that's really good. So it could be a little underwhelming. Like I could definitely see this draft, you know, just coming short of beating teams just because the Mons themselves, while they work, I think um, they work together well, but they're not the best Mons in the world. You know, so even though they work together well, um, you could just have a better draft that works together well and also are very good Mons that synergize well. If you know what I mean, I guess. It's hard to explain it, but it's just they're underwhelming. They could be underwhelming Mons, but you drafted them so that they have the best chance to succeed. So I don't think it's necessarily a fault for you here. So as far as Sappy's draft, so Sappy, he generally has the most cursed drafts in existence here. In this situation, let me think. So he's a clown. I've never used the clown in Sword and Shield. I don't think I've even seen the clown being used in Sword and Shield. I'm trying to think. I feel like I've never seen the clown used in Sword and Shield. Like, yeah, I feel like I haven't seen it. Like, it's probably a little bit weird, especially if you're only A. Let's see how you support it though. Haxorus, Hippowdon. It's interesting. Zarude, Inteleon. Okay. Shelmet. It's kind of weird for me to say that Shelmet is like your best mon, but like it just feels like a very weird draft to me. You don't even have like a good screen user to like make this work. I guess guard gets screens, right? Yeah. But I don't know, I mean, your hazard removal is Articuno. That's the only mon you have, and you have mons that are very severely crippled by hazards. Blacephalon in particular, you'll only be able to use it 4 times in a game if you don't take any hits. And you don't only want to run boots on Blacephalon because you need the power. With Articuno, you can say you run boots most often, but you kind of need it to defog now, so it can't really use those sub-pressure sets that are really cool. And then like Inteleon is just really underwhelming. Zarude, I think, is probably okay, but like I don't understand. You're gonna rely heavily on Haxorus here, I think, to be your breaker, because it's the only mon here that's capable of consistently breaking, I think. But I think Haxorus as a mon isn't really necessarily good, so there is that problem. And I mean, I can kind of see synergy between Blacephalon and Haxorus, but me saying Blacephalon and Haxorus makes me really question how good that synergy is. I guess Blacephalon, Haxorus, and Guard is specs. I mean, you have, like, I feel like you put Victini instead of Blacephalon, and this draft becomes infinitely better somehow. Like, literally, it becomes infinitely better. I don't know why, but it's just a better fire type. It actually gives you momentum to get in your Guard, your Haxorus, stuff like that. It's a better breaker than Blacephalon. It can run boots effectively and run a bunch of other sets, like, and even Infernape in this situation. I know Infernape is taken, but it's just they're better fire types, I think. Especially, I think Victini is undrafted. I feel like you solved this draft with Victini, and the draft is still very subpar, I'd say. But I mean, I've never been a big fan of Sappy's drafts. I will say, but it just feels weird to me. Like, I know Sappy's seen like mixed success with his bad drafts or with subpar drafts. But imagine if Sappy was using good drafts, you know. I know he said he doesn't want to try hard or whatever, you know, whatever. Like, I guess. But Victini is a very fun mon. Like, there are good mons that you can bring a variety of sets on that aren't try hard at all, you know. Like if you're gonna draft like really bad mons and trying to do good things with them, like, this is not the draft to do that either, you know. Like, Like, these are just bad mons that are bad because they're underwhelming, not because people aren't able to utilize them to their full abilities, you know. Like Inteleon, that's literally what Inteleon is. But I'm probably gonna move on. It's just a really underwhelming draft. I know Sappy doesn't like drafting tryhard stuff, I guess, but I mean, that doesn't save you from getting criticized, you know. On to Sir, I forgot how to say his name, man. Crap. It's like, sure. No, it's not. I need that video. I forgot to say his name. It's like Azure or Sheer, something like that. I don't know. But onto Jir. So he has triple electric, which is very weird on this build. The reason why triple electric is weird is because you have Rillaboom. Like, if Rillaboom is going to be your main offensive threat, which, and I guess Medicham as well, why do you need triple electric, you know? Like, you have pressure for grass types, and then I guess flying types, but like it's kind of irrelevant. Because you have Skarm who walls every flying type anyways. It's just a weird draft. I mean, I'll say his low tier picks are a little bit sus. Everything below, because I like the first 1, 2, 3, 5 mons plus his mega. I like all his B picks, and I like Thundi with Medi. It's a good Volturn, but his draft is, if you notice, very slow. Noivern is his only fast, like actually fast mon, and if you drop Noivern, his fastest mon is that Mega Medi, or I guess Thunder's at 103, which, I mean, it's not ideal. His Wish Passer is Sylveon. Sylveon's pretty reliable, actually. But I feel like offensive poisons will trouble this draft, because your Muck, I think, is going to be overworked in this situation where it's kind of checking a lot of things, and Skarm as well. They might, if I feel like if an enemy team has 2 ways to pressure Skarm, it's just going to get blown back, and then you're going to lose the game, you know. It's like one of those drafts where I remember Yoshi's draft where I feel like Yoshi's draft is going to put so much pressure on Skarm and Muck that Nihilego is just going to win easily. Stuff like that. I think momentum-wise, it's pretty good. Like Teleport, Arcanine, Thundi. I think Sylveon gets Baton Pass, and then Volturn with these guys. The Stunfisk, I think, is a little bit weird. I think they're better grounds, probably. I've normally used Stunfisk on like rain builds, because when you have rain, you're weak to Torn specifically, and then stuff like Scissor, I guess. And it's with static, it's a good way to pressure or to punish U-turn against you, but you kind of have good U-turn punishers anyways. Like Arcanine is free against any U-turner, I think, that isn't like Lanzo T. And you have good ways to alleviate your ground weakness anyways with Rillaboom, so that's fine as well. But I just think Muck is kind of a whack mon this gen with the berry nerf. You also, hazard removal wise, I think it could be a little bit better. I'm not a big fan of when your best hazard remover is also your best hazard setter. It feels kind of counterproductive to me. Yeah, and Thundi is kind of weak to rocks as well, so there could be a problem there. I mean, obviously this team is very centered around Rillaboom, so I feel like if Rillaboom isn't getting so many kills, it's not gonna necessarily win. And I feel like you could have drafted better support. I mean, better like usage of terrain, that is, for your team. Like, I don't really the terrain doesn't really help your team, I would say, aside from like Arcanine and Muck. But those are 2 very like specific situations, and you don't want either of them taking EQ anyways in terrain. Because I think Muck, his Fizz def is not that great, and then Arcanine, you know, he doesn't want to take Earth Power at all. So there is that as well. So like special ground types will still wreck this team, like Nidoking. But I think I mean it's an okay draft. I think the synergy is a little bit suspect between like his good picks. Like I do like the mons he drafted, but the synergy isn't necessarily there. But I do think he has good momentum for Medi and stuff like that, so I could see him winning pretty easily most weeks, just because I know he likes his momentum. He likes having just like something fat and then having a bunch of momentum around it, I guess. So, I mean, it will force him to play more offensively, I think, with this type of build, because you can't really rely too defensively on this build like he has in the past. So, there's that side, but I've seen Sheer, I guess, do very well with offensive type builds. Example being all this Infernape builds, I'd guess, stuff like that. He's done pretty well. But onto Parahax. Hydreigon, Zera. I kind of like that. Okay, so Chansey is a little bit whack, I will say. Tangrowth, Togi. Tentacruel, Copperajah. Golisopod, Mag, Sandaconda, Megaglade. Let me think here. I don't know how to feel about this one. Well, I don't think it's that great, but it's also it's kind of I don't know if it's average or good. It is somewhere in between, I would say though. Just because I feel like there's a couple mons that just ruin it. Chansey being one of them. Like why do you need Chansey on a Hydreigon Zeraora build? You know. It's like Hydreigon, Zeraora, Tang, Togekiss. Do you really need a Chansey? Like, his low tier picks are okay. I think they're all viable, and they all offer something on this type of build. The Golisopod is good at pressuring psychic types, not psychic, ground types for Zeraora. Copperajah is a good steal in this build, I think. For fairy types, that is. You have good momentum. Boots Togi is pretty good defogger for this team, and you have good hazard removal. Otherwise, you have a ground poison, so speed tiers are pretty good, I'd say. You know, an example where his fastest mon is Zera, and then his second fastest mon is Megaglade, so it's very important speed tier. So I mean, I do like the fundamentals of his draft are there. I probably just don't like a couple of his picks. But I think overall it's a pretty good draft, I'd say. I do know that Hydreigon can be somewhat unreliable, and so can Zeraora. That's something I'll 100% say. Hydreigon Zeraora can be somewhat unreliable, but he has Hydreigon Zeraora Megaglade, which offensively that's very good together. And then you have Copperajah as well with the pressure fairies, so I think it's a very good team. Actually, I would probably say it's up there. Let me try to think. Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's just like one pick I'm not a big fan of. That's it. But I can see clear synergy, and I like the synergy between them. Because it's a very balanced type build, but I mean, it's a good balance, I think. But yeah, it's pretty good. I like the synergy between Hydreigon Zero and Megaglade as your offense, and then obviously his defense is very solid. With Tang, Togi, and Tenta, and I guess even Chansey. I mean, the only thing is maybe he's very weak to ice, I'd say. Yeah, he's very weak to ice. Something like Kyurem with Freeze Dry would kind of destroy this team. But you do have the Chansey, I guess. That's what the Chansey does, but wouldn't you rather just have a good fire type as your B, like Arcanine, you know? And have a good draft. I mean, I know Arcanine is taken, but like, wouldn't you rather have a good Ice Resist that you can rely on than have to rely on Chansey, who is very exploitable? But I'll move on. I like Parahax's draft though. So single A's. So Mew Guard, Raikou, Scizor, P2, Umbreon, Gran, Moltres, Quillfish, Thwackey. I remember he picked Thwackey, and I was like, there's like 9 better grass types, and there is. And Mega Gyarados is last. I think I would have liked to seen another water in this type of. He does have 2 waters actually. Never mind. Yeah, I like Quirrell as your second water. This team is. It's kind of like, it's good, but it's not great, I'd say. Actually, let me think here. I think it's a pretty good draft. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good draft actually. I think Raikou on this build is okay. Generally, I'm not a big fan of Raikou, but it's pretty good in this type of build because you do need the speed. It could be much faster, obviously, but it's a kind of a common problem at this point. But yeah, I think it's not that bad. I'll say Scizor. I'm not a big fan of Scizor as a mon in general, and your hazard setting options are kind of limited. Because realistically, your only rocker is Mew. Is that really? Yeah, your only rocker is Mew. Okay, that could be very issue. Is that really true? Okay, yeah, you might need. Yeah, that is. I didn't even realize, but I mean, I was thinking about why I don't like Scizor and why I don't like Zygarde, and it's because Scizor is a steel that doesn't give you rocks, and Zygarde is a ground that doesn't give you rocks. And so you combine that, and you have no rocker. Aside from Mew, which you want Mew to do other things than be your designated rocker every week. And rocks, are still very much good. Stuff like Megazord X. Pressured by rocks, stuff like Blacephalon. You don't want to run boots on Blacephalon, so you definitely need rocks still. And you can support rocks by having good knockoff. So like stuff like Mandibuzz, like Metro's Mandibuzz. If you knock its boots, then suddenly it's not really a good check. Because you don't have lefties, so it's not, you're gonna be forced to roost more often and stuff like that. So rocks are still very much relevant, especially with good knockoff. Which you do have. You have Scizor. But I mean, you definitely need a rocker. I think Grottle. At least you'll have a rocker. But I mean, you probably can just trade P2 because you don't. Why do you need P2 on this type of build? It's just you're too defensive. Like Umbreon and Porygon as your main defensive. Like they do the same thing. They're weak to fighting. But they're both really good special walls. They do the same thing, realistically. So I don't understand the synergy here. So I'd say it's kind of a below average draft. I was really liking the synergy, and then I realized you're just missing essentials, But I think P2 and Umbreon, they're a little bit overlapping here. You could maybe get Grottle instead of Thwackey, solve your rocking issue. Moltres I like though. Granbull's okay. The weird thing about Granbull nowadays is, like, if you think about the relevant mons that Granbull wants to check, it doesn't really do that great of a job anymore, just because Inner Focus, so Gallade is immune to Intimidate, and Megalope, with, what's it called, Scrappy? They're both immune to Intimidate now, so it loses a lot of its value, I think, just because against, like, those 2 mons that it was really good at checking before, it's not that great at anymore. And stuff like Mawile, Medicham, the very good physical attackers, they have coverage to hit it. Like Poison Jab, if you have rocks up against this team, Poison Jab will kill you, even if you're max Fizz Def, So there's issues like that, I think. But I think offensively, the team does function well. You just need to fix some of the fundamentals of your draft, I think. and it'll be pretty good, I think. So on to Moist's draft. Chomp Zap. It's a very good core. Let's see how. Okay, Ferrothorn. I like Zapdos Ferrothorn has been one of the best two-man cores since ORAS. I think it's been like a top 10 core or top 10 two mons since ORAS, I think. You have a good Ice Resist in Milotic. I like that a lot. Incineroar as well to double down. Weezing, not the biggest fan of Weezing, but I mean it's okay here. Your speed tiers are okay, I think. You have Megalope Frost. Orbeetle is maybe a little bit weird, I'll say. Just because you don't really, what do you need webs for, you know? I guess the webs are for, I mean, you have like competitive Milotic, but like to punish defog, that is, but I don't think you really need webs. I'd rather just see any other psychic. Realistically, like Bronzong maybe. Double Steel is fine, I think, because you can run Heat Proof on Zong, and it's not really weak to fire. And obviously Levitate makes it immune to ground, and it's a better ice resist than Ferrothorn. So I'd probably like to see a different psychic than Orbeetle. I know I mentioned that before though, but I just don't think webs are really useful in this type of build. Maybe for your Zangoose, but like Zangoose and Wishy-Washy, like come on now. Wishy-Washy is also not that great of a mon. Like you have Milotic. When is Wishy-Washy ever gonna come with Milotic or over Milotic? Probably never, you know. I'd rather just run Specs Milotic because it hits much harder, and still just as bulky. But yeah, I think your E's are just a little bit like I like even Frostlass is okay here. Like Frostlass and Galar are a little bit suspect. Your speed tiers are okay, I think, because you need this Frostlass to fill that hole between Lope and Chomp. There's probably other mons you could have used, but Frostlass it's not great, but it does the job, you know. And I can see it being useful here. Yeah, I guess actually you have Ferrothorn for spikes. And if you went Zong instead of Orbeetle, you probably have good rocks too, so you might not even need Frostlass. You'd probably just want something else, like Tauros maybe. I mean, I would like Tauros here. Tauros kind of does what Zangoose is trying to do better. It gives you good speed, and then you can try and use your E's to like fill some holes, you know. Yeah, I think the way I would probably fix this, not that it's like bad at all, because I do like the synergy. It's very textbook synergy between, you know, Chomp, Zap, Pharaoh, Milotic, Incineroar, and Lope. But I'd probably just draft like I'd probably just go like Zong over Orbeetle, and then like what's it called? And then Tauros over Frostlass, and then pick two different E's, I think. Not really sure which E's, but I mean, there's a bunch of E's, you know, you could draft. Just more like role player E's. You don't really need more offense, you know. But you can Chomp and Megalope. It's very good. You might want a better, because with Zap without Hurricane, you probably want something better, specially to put pressure. So something in E that gives you special attacking presence. If you really wanted like me to look at it, I could, but that's probably something that your draft just needs. But yeah, I'll go on to Hazes. But overall, I'd say it's a pretty good draft. Just, you know, a couple picks. Your low tier picks could be better. But has AG, Darm, Crook, Needle, Snorlax, Chestnut, Mantine. It's a little bit slow, I'll say. Megalodus as your fastest isn't really great. You know, an Aura would be okay, but Sword and Shield. Aloe. Aloe and Mantine are a little bit weird, I will say. Your hazard removal isn't really great, I'd say. It's just Mantine. Is it literally just Mantine? I don't know if Latios gets it, but if if Latios doesn't, then it's just Mantine, which presents some problems for sure, because you have Darm. Your hazard setting is good, I'd say, but I mean, I'd probably try and trade Snorlax for a better Defogger or Spinner, whichever suits your boat. Synergy-wise, it's a little bit suspect, I'd say. AG, Darm, Megalodios together. I mean, I get what it's kind of, it's trying to put pressure on bulky psychics, I guess, for Latios to sweep. And then you can also put pressure on Waters, I guess, with Darm and AG. And then potentially like Nido and Crook can put in a lot of work. But you are overlapping a lot, I would say. Maybe Crook and Nido are not really ideal together. To be honest, I don't. Both are kind of important though. You do have a good. I mean, Alamalola is kind of important because you have this double ground core. In terms of being a water resist, and with Darm, and then electric, and so I guess they support each other that way. But I guess if you have both beam coverage, you'd be able to hit both anyways. That could be annoying. But I mean, I guess I see the synergy, but I feel like it could be a little bit better. Between Lottie, AG, and Darm as your offense, and then obviously your support picks are a little bit suspect all over the board. For a couple of reasons, like, yes, Chestnut is a good ground resist, and yes, AG can support it with being a good flying resist, I'd say. But, and Mantine, I guess, is a decent flying resist as well, but there are going to be situations where Chestnut is not really... Chestnut is susceptible to being chipped, even though it has synthesis. I can think of the best example being like in sand. It's not going to be able to stay healthy. So there's that situation, and I know it's like Sappy has hippos. So I think overall it's okay draft, but it's definitely not a good draft. It's not a bad draft. It's just okay. I think there is synergy. It's not the greatest synergy, but I mean at least there is synergy, you know. But yeah, you just need better hazard removal. You kind of want better speed tiers as well, and then maybe then your synergy will also speak for itself, I think, because there is synergy here. You just need to kind of fix the holes, and then maybe it's gonna all click together better. So lastly is Napie's draft. So Napie decided to draft Coco Corv and Pex. So normally when you're drafting Coco, you want to draft Coco so that your mons benefit from terrain. You know, I can think of Victini being a very prominent example because of Bolt Strike, Kieran Black being one of Coco's best partners because of Fusion Bolt, allowing it to break past waters that previously it could not to KO. Even stuff like special attackers with T-Bolt. But yeah. And then obviously in burden users. So granted, you do have good electric resists and electric immunities, I'd say, in Marowak and Piloswine. But offensively, this draft is very suspect, because this is Coco without DLC. It should be, I think. So it's not the greatest Coco. I mean, it's still a very good mon, but you know, offensively, it's very much suspect, because you can't really rely on Coco being your kill leader, I think, especially without great offensive pressure. So while I do like Pex, I do like Corv, I do like Pex, Gren together. Like it's all very good support. You have good support, I'd say, but you don't have good offensive core to build to capitalize off the support, I'd say. Like Mega Hera it's not a great mon, and it doesn't really do much for you, I think. Like, how does Mega Hero help Coco break? I don't really see the synergy there. And then if you think about it, your only offense is Coco, Gren, and Mega Hero. Which, I mean, obviously you have Marowak, but your only reliable offense is Coco, realistically here. Because Mega Hero is not, it's not going to sweep anybody. Gran isn't really going to sweep anybody, except Napi, but maybe he was so tired of losing, he was so annoyed that he lost to Gran that he decided to draft it, I guess. But you forgot to draft the Togekiss, so whoever has Togekiss can still abuse that mechanic, you know. But I just think the support is very good together. It's kind of weird because a lot of these drafts are, I like their offensive pressure, and it's very good, and then the support for that offensive pressure just is very like, what is this, guys? Come on now. But this is the complete opposite, where his support is probably the best support out of everyone. But then if you think about what is capitalizing off that support, it's Coco, Mega Hero, like, and Gran and Marrow. It's very suspect, I'd say. I know it's something I told him, but imagine Zeraora on this draft. It's suddenly amazing, especially on like more balanced type mons, you know. This is a very balanced type build where Coco it kind of wants to play offensively with another Volturn user, which you don't really have. Like, you got Gran, I guess, but like you don't really have anyone to help Coco pressure. You know, something like Victini, Dragapult, stuff like that. I mean, obviously Coco Pult is impossible, but you just kind of want to have good, you know, Volturn with it. You know, maybe whoever drafts Victini between you and Sappy first, with this will save your draft, because realistically you have all these mons. Like, why do you have so much electric immunity and resist focus? Is because you drafted Coco to be a counter synergy against yourself. Like, you wouldn't need Gudra, Shaman, Marowak, Alola, and Piloswine if you didn't have this Coco ruining your own draft. Like, imagine if you're able to actually draft something like another A like Victini, and then that means you can get rid of this Marowak. So like Victini is so much more reliable, and then this Marowak can become a good role player indeed, you know. But like, you drafted so much you drafted so much stuff, you put so much emphasis on stopping electric pressure that it kind of ruined your offensive potential of your draft. Yeah, that's a good way to frame it, I guess. Is like normally you could just draft Quillet in this draft and you'd be perfectly fine. But you kind of really need all this electric ways to stop electric types, because you drafted Coco and your Corvpex core, which is very solid, is kind of weak to it, you know. So that's kind of why, I mean, imagine if you had Zero and you'd be able to, you know, stop drafting 5 ways to beat electric types. And I think this draft would have been the best draft, actually. Like, and I think you can still potentially, I think you kind of just need to live with it, having Coco, and maybe you just need more offensive pressure, you know. Victini is maybe that solution. I'm sure there's other mons out there that can also fix your draft, but you just need more offensive pressure. I think the defense is very solid, and the role players are very solid. They're all good together. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Corv as your only defogger is fine. You know, Marowak's fine being weak to rocks, I think, because you can run boots on defensive Marowaks, and then offensive Marowaks you're probably gonna just get 1 kill anyways, so, or 1 or 2 kills anyways, so being weak to the rocks doesn't really impact it that much. But I mean, it's just, I would just like to see more offensive more ways to capitalize off Coco's offensive pressure. But yeah, I'm kind of repeating myself here. So overall wise, I'd say obviously I like Metro's draft. Let me think here. Who else's draft did I like? I like Parallax's draft, I'd say. Metro and Parahax's draft probably, and then let me think. So I like Chris and Yoshi's drafts. And they can literally make like one trade and fix, and it'd be just as good, I think. So I'd say like top 4 is probably like Metro, Parahax's, Yoshi's, and Chris's draft. I'd say. As far as 4 I like. As far as drafts I dislike, I'd say generally I kind of dislike most drafts. There's plenty of drafts here that like they're just pretty good, like Dank, Seps, who else is, and Moists. I think Dank, Seps, and Moist drafts, they're just pretty good. I can see synergy between their top picks. It's very clear. Their support, while not great, is still good support. And then as far as Sappy has Single and Sheer, they're just missing something, you know, something big. I think Sheer's draft is missing the synergy, you know. Whereas Hazard's draft is missing, you know, the support. You need better hazard removal. Same, and then Single, you need, you know, Mew is your only rocker, doesn't really work. Sappy's, I mean, I went into detail, but it's just underwhelming. Mons, is that it? Yeah, I think that's unless, and then Napi's draft is underwhelming offense. If I'm gonna lump it in there with them, is kind of the gist of it. But as far as drafts I like, I'd probably say Metro, Parax's, Yoshi's, and Chris's drafts are pretty good. Yeah, and then I think only 3 are passable, and then the rest they need trades 100%. That's probably gonna be it for me. I don't know how many coaches make playoffs. Otherwise, I'd probably. Oh, I guess this tells me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess it's 4 each. I'm probably not gonna do playoff predictions just because I was going to make playoff predictions here, but like, quite frankly, I feel like I've only seen like five coaches play, like, or like 4 coaches in each division play. So maybe I'll do something at midseason when I've seen more people play. But that's gonna be pretty much it for the video, I think. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like, you know, subscribe. But that's, and I mean, I guess I might see you guys in mids.